Here's our December State of the Union. Donations are down, as folks have seen kind of across the board. We're back down to 2019 levels. Understandably, we're kind of reverting to where we were pre-pandemic in a lot of this on the donation quantity side. On the average gift side, however, November was the second largest year-over-year increase in average gift we've found in the past decade. The largest was October. So I think we can say that the uptrend in direct mail, at least average giving, is real. We've been kind of monitoring this since late last year, and you can see across the board average gift consistently up, whether that's by inflation and people are seeing their dollar not go as far in a lot of different places, or the messaging that we're putting around it, that there is increased need, that there is increased, your dollar may not go as far. We're not sure, but we know that there's part an environmental factor and part how we're reacting to that environment that is likely causing this average increase, only to double-digit increases, that is over $10 increases in average gift over time that we've ever seen. So lower donation level, higher average gift gives you basically flat revenue. Yes, we were up a little bit in December, but I called it flat when we were down slightly in September and down slightly in October. So let's be a little intellectually honest about this and not celebrate a little bit of a tick up in November. This also goes to the challenges that we were talking about in 2019 continuing through. We're seeing that drop in the number of donors, that increase in the value of each donor, yes, that is compensating for it, but eventually it won't. Eventually, there will be one donor left who's giving billions of dollars each, and oh, how we will fight over that donor. So trying to reverse this trend and engage more people in philanthropy, getting those new and emerging donors into our organizations. Wanted to also share ADSTRA's results through August. They did make this public, so wanted to share. Mail quantity was down 4%. Response rate was down 28% during that time, so a little bit more of a drastic drop there, and they saw only a 4% increase in average gift. They may not be doing the kind of aggressive moves that some of the folks on this call, some of the other folks in the sector are doing to try to buoy that average gift in the face of a lowering response rate. So that is a dramatic decrease in revenue. I can tell you from talking with a couple of their folks, a couple of the Epsilon folks, a couple of our, partners / competitors in the sector, talking with them, they are seeing a bit of a tick up after. One other thing to note, while I have it to make fun of, this, if you look at the mail quantity graph over here, this is how you make a drop in 4% look really big. Start your chart at $57 million pieces instead of starting at 0. So if you ever need to inflate the nature of something and make 4% look huge, that's how you do it. Any questions on any of those results? I know I went lightning round on them, so feel free to shout out any questions you have.
Nick, is ADSTRA, is that primarily cultivation, or is it a mix of cultivation and acquisition?
This is cultivation and acquisition. It's a good question, and I would say the Aegis results are also a mix of acquisition and retention. Generally speaking, and I can't speak for everyone, so I paint with a broad and largely indiscriminate brush, but we are generally seeing that acquisition is hit harder than retention, that among multi-year donors, especially those who are with us before the pandemic, have similar sort of retention rates to those who had come before them, and so not seeing as much drop off there as in people's desires to pick up new organizations during these times. Don't know if that's what folks on the call have experienced, but that's what most of what I'm seeing, with some limited exceptions, are seeing.
Yeah,
How are things over at Mercy Ships?
that's what we're seeing. We drop about 1 million pieces of acquisition a month,
Yeah.
and that's definitely been hit the hardest.
Yep. And we've definitely seen that across the board. We saw the gradual drop in acquisition results pre-pandemic. It used to be you could get 2% in acquisition back many moons ago when I had hair. But that's no longer the case. And we've seen them come down, but this is a bit more dramatic in part because we had that big jump up in the middle, but even compared to your 2019's acquisition are hurting. And the double whammy is the increased costs of mail pieces, making acquisition more expensive. Now, I will say we are working on gathering some intel from within the organization. I hope in our January meeting, I'm going to be able to present some trends to you that show that other than postage, which is its own thing that we can't control, there are going to be, knock on wood, some signs of easing in the costs of mail pieces. So that would be obviously a welcome respite from what we've been seeing, where the supply chain is the chain that our suppliers beat us with. Anyone else seeing that same discrepancy or seeing something different, seeing better acquisition results? Okay, then let us head over to Giving Tuesday, and we have Kayla Twain from More Digital to share with us some of the results that they were seeing by sector on Giving Tuesday and some things that worked. So, Kayla?
All right, thanks, Nick. Welcome to Giving Tuesday land. If anyone has any questions while I'm running through these results, feel free to chime in. Don't feel like you have to wait till the end. Want to keep it very conversational. But just to give an overall update, Giving Tuesday this year raised $3.1 billion for charities in the tough economy. Giving Tuesday is now in its 10th year, which is crazy. That made me feel super old. So this is their 10th anniversary year. I did not realize that. This number overall is a 15% increase over last year, over 2021, and a 25% increase since 2020. So it's definitely trending in an upward trajectory, pretty significant upward trajectory. I do want to note this is a little bit misleading, right? In case you experience some soft results specifically with your account or on your nonprofit. It's a bit misleading in that there are more organizations than ever participating each year, right? So it's not as if this is year-over-year results for the same exact nonprofits. That universe size is growing significantly as well. So just want to note that before we move on to our next slide. Okay, so here is a breakdown of our results. We love to see the green. We love to see the increases year over year. Nick has gotten this grouped into sector. And so you can see overall, it's a great story to tell. Overall, across clients, we are up in both dollars raised and number of gifts. And that's across all verticals, which is very, very exciting. I do want to note that this is only taking a look at clients for which we had data last year and this year. So this is a direct look at year-over-year comparison. But overall, it's a really, really great story to tell. A strong showing across verticals. In a year where we're experiencing some anecdotal softness in digital, this was really a really nice surprise. So we were really excited to see this. There were a lot of things that contributed to the success here, which I'm going to get into in a second. And I want to share those insights with you so that we can all benefit from them as we plan next year. Because we're always, as fundraisers, we do not rest on our laurels. We're always thinking about next year, right? So the first insight I want to share is a test that one of our clients did where they tested Giving Tuesday branding. I'm going to get into some overall best practices for Giving Tuesday, and one of them includes utilizing the branding, which I'll get to. But this is a test to see the client had not historically utilized Giving Tuesday branding in email. They had used the name, right? And you can see on the left, they mentioned Giving Tuesday. They had not used the branding, meaning the logo, and it was a static image versus a GIF. So those were two of the differences here in this test. There was a static Giving Tuesday text only image in an email, And then they tested that A/B against an animated GIF with the Giving Tuesday logo. And we can talk about the results. Animated and branded won. That resulted in a 23% increase in clicks, a 66% increase in revenue, driven exclusively by increase in average gift, not a difference in gift number, which is super interesting. And it also had half the number of unsubscribes. So I think sometimes we take that as sort of at face value, like that's just the best practice, but this just sort of reiterated and solidified our stance there that it definitely is the right way to go. Utilize the Giving Tuesday branding throughout your creative. Another thing I want to talk about is diversifying revenue streams for Giving Tuesday. And one of the ways we've seen a lot of success with that is through texting, SMS. And so we proceeded with, for one of our clients, a single text with a link to a donation page. This was the first text received by People as the organization. There was a 3.2% conversion and $101 average gift. You can see here there's a lot of urgency. There's a match in here, but it was just the one text sent day of Giving Tuesday, and it resulted in an insane amount of revenue, lots of return. And so we were really excited about that. If that's not something that your organization is doing, you should be doing it. There's very little risk, lots of potential reward, and a low investment upfront. Okay. And then test success number 3 was a personal email. Put personal in quotes because, as you know, you can't really send a personal mass email, but you can do your darndest to make sure it looks personal. And so there was, we didn't want to show the email. We couldn't show the email without ID in the organization. But this email was sent out in a text-only format. And that's something I would say if your organization is not doing, they should be doing. It's a nice way to cut through the clutter and get attention. There was a spelled out and clickable URL. The email used the recipient's first name. There was a real-time amount left to goal update populated in the email, and it was from the CEO. So again, how can you cut through the clutter in the inbox? There's so many emails going out on Giving Tuesday. What's a way to stand out? Text only, different sender, right? Differentiate your sender. Hey, I'm not used to getting an email from this person at this organization. That's super interesting. Urgency. And then another way that another tactic this client used that I really liked was sent from my iPhone was below the signature line. It wasn't sent from, spoiler alert, it was not sent from the iPhone, but it makes it look more authentic. It makes it look like this is a real-time thing that's going out from the CEO. There's urgency attached there, right? Because when you get a plain text email, there's this almost indication that, hey, this organization didn't have time to give me a fully fleshed out creative email. They just had to get this message out because it's so urgent. And those tend to perform really, really well. That email turned out to be the best of the day and brought in 14% of this organization's total Giving Tuesday revenue. Any questions on those tests before we go into overall best practices? Okay. Overall best practices, always use Giving Tuesday brand elements. That's the logo in your creative. This is a way to tap into the brand equity that Giving Tuesday already has. It's been around for 10 years. People know what it is. And when you are able to just use the logo in your creative, it largely, that in and of itself functions as your case for support. You don't have to do a lot of heavy lift when you're able to lean into the Giving Tuesday branding. And so we would absolutely recommend that if you're not doing that already. Brevity is your friend. I think too, sometimes people think, you know, I have to put a really huge case for support in here. I need to put in a personal story that's multiple paragraphs. I need to just throw everything I have at it. And for Giving Tuesday specifically, brevity is your friend. As I mentioned, people see it's Giving Tuesday, it's functioning as the case for support. You just got to kind of point them in the right direction and let them click and donate. So that's not to say that there is no place for mission-based messaging for Giving Tuesday. There absolutely is. It's just keep it short, right? Rather than maybe 4 paragraphs about a personal story of someone you're helping, maybe it's 1. So you're able to marry the mission language with the Giving Tuesday branding, and that's going to be your best result. More messages does not turn people off or cannibalize revenue. So I think that's also a misconception that some organizations have where, okay, well, if I'm going to send all these emails and, you know, ultimately, if I just sent one, I would raise the same amount of revenue. We know that is not the case. A minimum email cadence specifically that I would recommend would be sending one email the day before, two the day of, and one the day after. In fact, that is a minimum cadence. I would recommend probably at least two before, three day of, which I'll get to as another insight when we get to the next slide, and one the day after as well. So it doesn't cannibalize the revenue. We've seen that sending multiple emails is definitely the way to go on that day. And that's because there is such a heavy influx of messages in inboxes that just pulling your message back up to the top each time really does work. I did want to, sorry, Nick, I had a couple more things to say. So the other things I wanted to say is the end of day sends. So I mentioned two maybe of day of, but the more you can send towards the end of the day, that was an interesting trend that happened this year. Last year, the top performing email message was day of AM. But this year, we're seeing a lot of success with PM sends and multiple PM sends closer to midnight, which is interesting. So don't think, hey, I can't send past 6 p.m. People aren't going to open it. That's not the case for Giving Tuesday. I would recommend sending one, you know, maybe 6 p.m. and even 9 p.m. Because that really stole the show. Those end of day sends stole the show. If you're not utilizing resends in order to increase the amount of emails you're sending, do that. That's an easy way to, that's not a heavy creative lift. You're just resending to individuals who maybe didn't open the email initially and getting that in front of additional sets of eyeballs. Again, there's so much traffic to inboxes on this day that you just want to try and pull your message back up to the top whenever and wherever you can. I know I said it before, but I'll say it again. Diversify your revenue streams with SMS and text messaging. It is just, it's to me, low hanging fruit. Some notes there, I would say you're going to have your greatest success with texting individuals who have an aptitude to give digitally or have shown that they give digitally. So for the test I mentioned earlier, we texted the 1 to 6 month active donor file. And that's going to be your best bet to get response. So that's just a way to sort of like hedge your bets and make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck with an initial test there. And then again, matches and multipliers, if you have them, Giving Tuesday is the time to bring them out. So if you're able to get a match for Giving Tuesday, do that. If you have multipliers, do that. Anything you can throw at Giving Tuesday to just take it a little bit further is going to pay off in spades. That's my spiel. Any questions, guys? Nick, do you have anything?
Just throw it open.
Questions, concerns, comments, team? All right.
Thank you, Kayla. Very helpful. We saw a number of graphs and kind of charts that talked about returning to that pre-pandemic level in a lot of different areas. Pacific shipping is back down to where it was pre-pandemic. This is a big input to a lot of our high velocity premiums that may be sourced offshore. You know, shipping was 10 times what it is now to get freight in the throes of last autumn, and so coming back down is great to see. Framing lumber is back down as housing starts are down. If anyone was trying to purchase lumber around last summer, they know exactly what this is going through, and we're back down to a more normal level. Bitcoin's back down to where it was in 2018. Zoom's back where it was pre-pandemic. Peloton is back down to where it was pre-pandemic. And so we're seeing it's not just the charitable sector. Things are reverting to where they were in 2020 in a lot of these areas. E-commerce hasn't come all the way back down. My guess is that there are, to kind of the trend line that you see here, my guess is that there were some people who discovered it during the pandemic who aren't necessarily letting go, but it's almost back down to where it was. And so that it's reverting back to trend, just like we're seeing charitable giving doing. So as you're framing this up for your boards, for your bosses, for other people, as you're explaining what's going on right now in 2022. It's not necessarily, although the economy could be better for charitable giving, rather it's going back to the trend of fewer donors, larger gifts that we had been seeing for the previous 2 decades. Happily, inflation looks like it may also be coming back down, and this was before yesterday's news about November coming back down as well. So across countries, we may be getting back to more normalcy. A few different organizations shared their trend data coming up, and so they're for 2023, very popular past time in December. Also top 10 lists looking backward, but we're more interested in looking forward. Gartner Group put together 5 trends that they're seeing as they look at trends, as they look at surveys, as they actively do surveys. Great brand expectations. People are expecting, especially for-profit brands, to say, you know, we're not going to increase prices as much as we would have during inflation. We're going to share your pain. And there is some behavioral science research that say that consumers will punish organizations that they view as taking advantage of a crisis, people who increase the costs of umbrellas in a rainstorm, that sort of thing. And so interesting to see that as a trend coming. Leaning out, as the pandemic made us reassess work and the hustle culture, they believe that will continue. The job market is still strong for now. We may be seeing some softness in that coming up, but hopefully not full-on recession there. Cancel the rich. People are not necessarily saying the rich are bad, although some are, but rather saying, is aspiring to be rich what I want to do with my life? Is there an aspirational value in that? And so as we lean out, we may also say, I'm willing to give up. I don't want the CEO job. I want something that allows me to spend time with my family, and I don't need to be rich in order to do it. Myopic state of mind means people kind of coming back into themselves. Spiritually cocooning is the phrase that they use. And there's this incredible gap right now between people saying that their own lives are very nice and the world is going to heck in a handbasket. And that dichotomy is very stark. The analogy I use in my mind is, I hate Congress, I love my congressperson, but that's spilling over into other areas of our lives as well. And then wander and wonder, we've talked about experiential marketing for years and years, but as we're getting back out there, so to speak, looking for deep oceans and blue skies and those sorts of discovery and rediscovery is a big trend that they're seeing. So interesting values for 2023. Google looked back, and most of what you see in Google top 10 lists won't recur next year. These are not trends so much as looks back. You know, we're not going to see Betty White or Bob Saget on the top searches again next year, probably. But some interesting ones in the how to pronounce category. I had to look up a couple of these, and some of them very tied, hopefully, to current events. I would love to not see how to pronounce oligarch on here next year. In terms of shortage, we faced the label shortage and the paper shortage, and those are certainly not as important as things like the tampon shortage, God help us, the epidural shortage, the baby formula shortage. But I would put it above sriracha if I had to say it. If I had to choose between having my envelopes and my labels or my sriracha, I'm going to choose the direct marketing materials. And then near me, hopefully, things like COVID boosters, PCR tests, and N95s will be something that we can leave behind us. Although with the season as it is, very hope may not intersect with reality there. And then Pinterest says they have an 80% track record in using pins to predict what trends are going to be for the next year. I first looked at this and viewed them all as happening at the same time. So should you wear burnt orange and ruffles and dual toned hair and add to your pup's pool party and things like that. But then they said, no, these are individual things that you would do one at a time. And so my fashion changed a lot because of that. There were 3 of these things, however, that may be relevant to our sector. Folks looking to save more, especially Gen X and millennials, they're looking to gamify their finances. And so this idea of thrift, as well as the idea of aspirational non-wealth goals, could portend well for charitable donations. Good on paper. It's always good to see paper and paper accessories being popular. And we do see millennials and Gen Z re-engaging with mail because it's not an experience that they have had as robustly as others have had in the past. And then YOLO years, looking at milestone anniversaries, birthdays, things like that. The idea of celebrating those is going up. And so we may have more opportunities for those type of honor memorial gifts than we've had in the past. Any questions on any of those trends? The ever popular potpourri section. Fidelity Charitable has announced that for the first time ever, new grants are surpassing deposits. On the one hand, that's great news. People should be dispersing from their donor advised funds accounts. And this is exactly what advocates have been asking for a number of years, making sure that people are getting their gifts to charity. On the other hand, you'd like to see people putting aside money for charity as well. So there's good and bad to this. Last year, around this time, CVS Health made a $10 million commitment to the American Diabetes Association, which is great of them. How they executed it, not as strong. They're being sued right now because they used their register receipts to cut against their $10 donation. So if you did a roundup at a CVS for the American Diabetes Association, that's not new money. You're just replacing the money that CVS had, and they said this nowhere in their marketing materials. I'm not a lawyer, and this is not a legal statement, but I hope they throw the book at them. Don't do this in your Roundup programs, in other words. We talked a little bit about influencer marketing in the past. Some things that are valuable for influencer marketing: number of followers as it goes up, ROI goes up. Although not as much as you'd think. It's more important that the people are doing original posts than that they have a huge amount of followers. So that was interesting. Including a link to the brand, also more important, because how else are people going to get there? And then there are Goldilocks effects there. People are looking for about 5 posts a week, no more, no less. They're looking for brand fit, but not so much brand fit. Only about 8 or 9% of your followers should already be engaged with a cause or another activity, so that there's a bit of a newness to some of it, but not too much newness. You don't want something that's totally off brand for the influencer. And positivity, there's a Goldilocks effect. They saw that posts where it's like, this new Lexus is great, look at all the features, and it looks like marketing copy, didn't work. Whereas things that were more organic, where the person shared a need that they had and then talked about a product or service or donation, that was more important. And finally, announcing a new product didn't work as well as talking about something that already exists in the marketplace. That's probably in my mind, because you can plausibly talk about, hey, I tried this for the first time, rather than I've heard about this thing. We'll be doing influencer marketing content coming up. The EU has put 400,000 euros into their own Metasphere, and they held a party in the Metasphere, and only 6 people showed up. So this is one of those examples where you could have given people 50,000 euros a piece to try to come to the party and still saved 100,000 euros. So maybe not quite yet for the EU's Metasphere. Jeep has asked the first person to name its new SUV, they're going to give them a ski trip. I know how internet voting works. This is going to be the name of the new Jeep. There's a nuclear fusion breakthrough that came through on Monday, which could, if we get to nuclear fusion, it is cleaner than really any other form of energy. If they can get it to work for more than 5 seconds, which was the breakthrough that they had in Oxford in February, I'm really hopeful that this is something that carries us through, because revolutionizing energy could change us so much of what all of us do. And I could finally get the Mr. Fusion for the back of my DeLorean and travel through time. So very excited about that. Couple of educational activities coming up. On January 17th, are you leveraging the USPS postal promotion? So our friends over at Production Solutions are going to be talking about maximizing your postal budget with some of those things. And then on the 24th, on kind of the other end of the technology spectrum, we're going to be talking about connected TV and how that can build your sustainer programs. And you can find both of those at wearemore.com/webinars. And I will tease, we talked a little bit about influencer marketing. There's likely going to be a February webinar on influencer marketing. And of course, I'll get word out to you as soon as we have that, but just don't have that just yet. And I said I promised to get you out by 10:30 and it's 10:31. My apologies. Anyone have questions or comments? I'm here for the duration, so let me know. Any thoughts? Lisa?
Many thanks to both of you. It's been a really good one today. They're always great, but this has been a great one. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I really appreciate Kayla coming on board. People get sick of my voice, I know. And so it's really good to have other voices and contributors coming in. And we love when folks ask questions and we're able to help address the concerns that you have. So if you have questions for next time, or want additional data on this, that, or the other, let us know and we'll try to dig into the bottom of it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Everyone have happy holidays and see you back here in January.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you.